Hi, I'm John Nord, and this is Making Spurs the Quick Way, Quick Steps to Making Western Spurs. First, you want to draw out your spurs, your shanks, your bands, your rowels, and how you want them. These will be traced off on your metal. And for the metal, uh, I use 1/4 inch for my bands, 1018 steel, and depending on the width of the band, 3/4, 1 inch, 1.5. I use 1/2 inch for my shanks, and these are my rowels. I've already cut them out and drilled them. They're 1/8 inch steel. This is all cold roll. Anyway, then you take your traced on patterns over to the bandsaw and cut them out. I usually use a smaller band than this, but this is all I've got at this time. This takes a little time and patience. You want to cut right above your trace line so you have room to file your spurs back to the line. Okay, I've got them all cut out and I've got them ready to file, and I use hand files for this. Hand file them back to my trace lines. Make sure both pair match each other. And I use chalk on my file to keep the files from clogging up. Okay, I'm showing here how I taper my bands. I usually taper the outside of my bands, thick in the back where the shank is and thin up front where the straps are. I use a 12-inch belt sander with a piece of angle iron for a jig to feed it in and out. This is showing the taper on the band. It's only tapered on the outside of the band. And I make sure they match up good. I also drill 16th-inch holes to start with where I want my holes, and then 3/16 I enlarge them to with a countersink on the inside of the band that will hold the brads when I brad the hanger pins into the band. Now I'm going to bend the bands to form, and I use a female and male jig. I've got the inside of the band up, and I just press this down until I get a full press into the male jig or die. This is a slow process, but here it is bent down in there. Now you'll see you get spring back when you cold bend them like this, and what we have to do next is we have to heat the bands up a little bit and clamp them down to the female die. Excuse me, the male die. Okay, we're heating up the bands here on the sides and up to the front. We've got them clamped down good, and we're going to heat them up, and then we're going to tap them in with a aluminum dowel pin. Tap them into the die, and then I put a little water on them to cool them, and this sucks them up to the die, and you can see here that they fit tight and just the way I want them. Now I'm going to split my shanks. I use a vise on my chop saw, and I've got a center line marked, and I just slowly cut these shanks with a chop saw blade. And this works out best for me. It's real safe, and I can get that slot right in the center of the shank. This is showing how I split it, and this is before the shank's welded on, of course, and I make sure the rowel fits. Now you get a dish in these bands when you press them, cold press them, so I have to use my belt sander to take that raised part on the outer band off. I get them smoothed off and I start welding them. I usually MIG weld mine. I can't TIG because of a pacemaker situation. But anyway, once I get them welded, make sure I have a lot of weld on there, and I start grinding them down. I use a cutter disc, then I use a flapper disc to start smoothing out the area where the welds were. And I just finesse this a while until I get it good and smooth. And you can see here how it blends in. Okay, this is just showing how I go ahead with a belt sander and I finish up some things on the spurs. taper the shank down a little bit, narrow at the back, and leave them wide at the front. Then I use a flapper, or not a flapper disc, but a disc with different grits on it, 80, 320, 400. I just work this on the spur until I get it all smoothed up. This works really nice, and then I kind of finish them out with my belt sander on a 400 belt, and I do the outsides at this time. And then I use a 3M wheel. It's a good deburring wheel. It really polishes up the outside of the band. Okay, and this is the chap guard I'm showing you. Chap guards need to be filed real nice. They represent a chip that was peeled up with a chisel in the old days, and I like to really work on them and make them look like a chip. These are the hangers. They're 3/16 cold roll rod, and I bend them and make sure they fit into the holes. I'll show you here how I bend them. I use a jig that I show how to make. And also one step here, I have to file this slot here at the bottom 45 degrees. That way, because my hangers fit up close to the band, and that way when you're turning the swingers, they'll turn okay. This is the jig that I bend the rods with, or the hangers with, and I show this on a video that I've got, and you can find this on how to make it. There you go. And I bend them and I make sure they fit in the holes. Sometimes I have to sand them just a little bit to get them to go in. But I'm going to hammer these all the way flat against the bands. That's why I file that 45 in there, so that swinger can move back and forth with this all up there, and there's plenty of clearance. And I'll push them all the way in, hammer them all the way in, then I brad them on the back side. Anyway, I fit each and every one of these to make sure they're just right, because you get a little variance when you bend them. Okay, this is showing them they're bradded in, and I'm showing you here how close they go up. They go all the way to the band. And I use my belt sander to clean up the inside of them. And this smooths out those brads to where you can barely see them on the inside of the spur band. And just showing you here how they finish up. Makes for a pretty nice spur. Okay, my swingers are made out of 5-inch wide 14 gauge strips. I cut them about 2 7/8 long, and I bend them a certain way with a little jig, and you can check this jig out on my channel. I've got how I make it. I center punch where I want my hole, and I drill these holes 3/16, about 5/16 from the top of the swinger. Also file off the top of the swinger to where it's curved and looks nice. I got a video on finishing these swingers out. Then I open them up with a wedge and a screwdriver, and this is how I'll insert them on the spur. They just slide right in. I make sure they turn good. Then I will close them up and brad the spur bands or spur buttons into them, and this shows the rowel fitted on, and it's bradded in. Anyway, pretty much got your spur done at that point. Hey, check out these videos. They're a playlist on my channel, and they give you more information on making spurs.